Well, I think education has changed dramatically. Like since this has happened in March, right across the country, primary schools, secondary schools, and a third level as well, everybody is learning now remotely. Everyone is used to it. It's not ideal in many ways, but a lot of people have got used to it. And for a lot of people, it is very, very convenient.
The Architects of Business, with EY Entrepreneur of the Year, telling the inspirational stories behind Ireland's most successful entrepreneurs.
Hello and welcome to the Architects of Business, made in partnership with EY Entrepreneur of the Year, where you hear the inspirational stories of some of Ireland's most successful entrepreneurs. I'm Sonya Lennon, broadcasting remotely from my home at this time. On today's show, I'll be speaking with Peter and Uná Kearns, the brother and sister duo who own and run one of Ireland's best-known schools, the Institute of Education on Leeson Street in Dublin. The business is busy responding to the challenge that is COVID, but at the same time, they're designing a reimagined future of education in Ireland. If you haven't already done so, please click subscribe to get brand new shows into your feed. I am very pleased to be joined in our remote studio today by Peter and Uná Kearns, the brother and sister duo who own and run the Institute of Education. You are both so welcome. And what a time to be in education. What a time to be focused on the Leaving Cert. But before we dive into that, it'd be lovely to kind of get a sense of the beginning of this wonderful business that you own and run. You weren't the first people who brought it to market. It is over 50 years old and was founded by your father. Uná, can you tell us a little bit about the early days?
Yeah, so the Institute, as you said, Sonia, was founded by our father, Raymond Kearns, in 1969. So last year we did celebrate 50 years, which was fantastic. So it started, I suppose, from fairly humble beginnings, renting a couple of rooms on Leeson Street, on the opposite side of the road where we are today. And it just started with Dad, with himself, was a maths teacher, and he started giving a couple of grinds in the evenings and Saturday mornings and things like that. And then he hired other teachers to give grinds in other subjects, and it just kind of grew from there. So very much kind of part-time courses, and then years later it developed into more of a kind of a full-time day school. So
And what point did that happen at, Uná, then?
so in 1969 we started the part-time courses, and then in 1979 was our first full-time day school for sixth year students. And back then it was mainly repeat students who were coming to us, and obviously things have changed, and there's fewer people repeating now because there are more courses on offer. But back then there were very few colleges around, and it was really a rat race to try and get the points to get in to do those kind of sought after college courses.
And Peter, what was that like then? I mean, first of all, it must have been very innovative to be opening a business like that at the time. You're still by far and away the market leader, but as sort of children growing up in this environment, what was it like?
Yeah, well, Dad is a very charismatic man. He's cocooning at the moment. He's going to be celebrating his 90th year in November.
Wow.
Yeah, no, and he's still very much.
Wow.
I know, it's phenomenal. And Mum, who's the young one, is a few years behind him. But yeah, no, Dad was always entrepreneurial, and that combined with being an excellent maths teacher as well. He saw the need and the demand, and he just had a certain energy within him to pursue it, and always believed in delivering the best and the best in education. And he just delivered a premium
Where did
product.
that come from, Peter, then? Like, did he inherit that from his own parents?
Well, yeah, Dad came from very humble origins in Ballyhadreen. It was a two-bed house with 9 children. I think as soon as any of them could leave home, they were kind of sent that way. I mean, Dad left home at the age of about 15 and went to work on the railroad. So you can imagine something like that happening nowadays. Well, it wouldn't happen. The social services be on top of it. But he went to work in the big bad world on the railroads at the age of 15, and he worked on the railroads up and down. The line is the one that goes to Enfield and Drumshambo and up around there, up into Leitrim, and he eventually ended up making his way to working in the North Wall in Dublin, and he was working there as a clerk for CIE, and he kind of had an epiphany, and he said, "This life isn't really for me." He wanted to better his lot. He wanted to do better, and he studied at night, did his Leaving Cert, and matriculated and went on into college. But he had to work while he was in college to make the money. At that stage, going into college was all about paying for the fees. So he had to work and go to college and work at the same time to pay the fees. And then when he was in college, I'd say he was quite a popular individual. He got elected as the president of the Students' Council, which was a big thing back then in the 50s.
I'm pretty sure it still is.
Yeah. Like he had the get up and go to do that. He got elected to that, and then following on from that, well, he tells a great story about how he sent a letter off to the States, applying to the University of Pittsburgh for a scholarship, and he says that he is the president of the Students' Council, and of course, in the States, to be the president of anything is a massive thing, and they were looking to recruit maths graduates because at that time the whole space program was taking off. The Russians had sent Laika the dog up into space, and Sputnik and all that, and they were looking to recruit worldwide good people in maths to come to the country and help them. So Dad won the scholarship for the University of Pittsburgh. He goes over, he studies this new mathematics that was coming out. He goes to Fordham University as well. Then he returns to Ireland with all this knowledge of this new mathematics. The syllabus had just changed. He was one of the few teachers that knew it. So he actually started off teaching teachers. That was the very first thing that he did. And then the University of Pittsburgh was a Jesuit university. He applied, he first of all worked down in James Street. He was teaching down in James Street, but then he applied for a position in Gonzaga College in Dublin, which is a well-known school. And I guess that the Jesuits, he got one of the Jesuit priests from the States to write a letter to the Jesuits in Dublin to say, Raymond, I know Raymond very well. He's a good guy. You can't go wrong with somebody like him. And he got the job. And then suddenly he says that was the day that he felt he had arrived. The boy from Ballahadreen, who, as he sometimes says, didn't have an arse in his trousers, suddenly has got the job as the senior mathematics teacher in Gonzaga College, this prestigious, Jesuitical Dublin school. And then he just kept on going and going and going.
Una, that's a hard act to follow, isn't it? I mean, that man is a movie, I think, your father. And obviously had a very, very circuitous route to become the founder of the Institute of Education. He's not the only one, though. I think both of you found your own way back into the family business. Am I right?
Yes. I don't know if Peter always had aspirations to go in, but I know that wasn't really the plan for me. We both did our own thing and worked for other companies. What happened with me was Dad had basically said to me one summer, "Oh, would you come in and give us a dig out?" They didn't have any kind of HR expertise at the time. My background was in business and psychology, and then I'd gone on and worked in Bank of Ireland and Diageo, and it was in HR that I was working. And so I said, okay, for a couple of months, I'll go in and give you a dig out. And that was like 18 years ago. So, but it's fantastic. It's challenging and rewarding. And, you never know what the knock on the door is going to be. And it's fantastic to be able to carry on that legacy that our dad, set up many years ago. And no regrets anyway.
Increasingly, I am struck by the power of working in multinationals. and bringing that back into your own family business, working for the likes of Diageo and bringing that thinking and that global thinking back in. Do you feel that has had, a big impact, having that external knowledge?
Absolutely. I think it is probably good if you can to go and kind of fly the nest, for anyone that is thinking ultimately that they'd go into a family business, get that broader, kind of wider experience. And you're able to come back and implement that into something that starts off with a couple of employees, that is mushroomed to 130 teachers and 70 non-teaching staff. So I don't think Dad ever envisaged it to have grown to this extent. And we have like over 100,000 square feet of property that we're occupying for educational purposes around Leeson Street. So I don't think he ever saw it go from where it was to where it is now, and definitely having that kind of broader knowledge, just the business background, and kind of the more Peter's background is finance, as well as the teaching experience that is there. It is kind of invaluable to the business to help it grow.
And Peter, tell us a little bit then about your journey back in. Even if the seeds were always there, you obviously went further afield.
Yeah, I did a commerce degree. Actually, all of us in the house did the commerce degree, and then I ended up somehow or other doing accountancy. Basically, I went on the milk round. I was actually doing banking and finance in commerce, but I remember applying to the big five or big six accountancy firms at the time to get some interview experience. And I remember saying, I definitely don't want to become an accountant. But I did the interviews, and lo and behold, all the banking people told me to get stuffed. There was no jobs. And all the accountancy firms said, we'll give you a job. So my mother said, you're going to take one of those jobs, so don't care. I said, I don't want to do accountancy. But anyway, I ended up doing a master's in accountancy in Kerrysford. It was called the MAC. And then I went to KPMG. I did my apprenticeship in KPMG as an auditor. And I always had a little bit of an interest in tax as well. It's always handy to know a little bit of tax. And then from there, I went to London and I worked in investment banking with Merrill Lynch, who actually, after the financial crisis, are no more. Young people probably don't even know that firm anymore, but they were big back
then. It's okay. We get the reference, Peter. We get it.
Yeah. And then I remember Dad came over to London to meet me, and he said, how are you getting on? I was having a good time, but you're working very long hours. And he said, any chance you might come back and give us a bit of a dig out? And well, I suppose you always have a grow and you always want to give back a little bit. And he says, what are you doing? Like working like a dog here. And if you come back to Ireland and you work in the family business, you're a master of your own destiny, and you can go fishing and playing golf, in the evening whenever you want or whatever, and it'd be a great life.
Peter, you must have been able to move pretty quickly to respond to the current crisis of COVID.
Yeah, well, when the COVID-19 crisis hit, well, first of all, we could see kind of the storm clouds on the horizon. We were seeing what was happening in Italy, and we knew it was coming this way. So immediately what we did was we said, okay, we need to finish out the course as quickly as possible. We stopped all sort of exams that we were doing, and we just aimed to get as much tuition across to the students as was possible. And we also started to plan for a situation where there might be a lockdown. We started putting in place. Well, first of all, we got all the notes that needed to be printed before the end of the year. We got them all printed. We got them out to the students. So at around St. Patrick's weekend, we brought in camera crews, and we got the teachers to come in and do their revision class in front of the cameras, so that we had it pre-recorded. And then we also really brought forward all the printing. There's quite a lot of notes that are printed in connection with the Easter revision courses. Then what actually eventually happened with the Easter revision courses, Leo Varadkar in that famous speech came in and said that we're having pretty much a full lockdown. and then we had to really push the recording. We brought in five different camera crews working 7-hour shifts each. So we're doing 35 hours of filming a day, plus they have to do the editing as well. So they were working all through the night, editing all this material. But we got, and then we also had to, on the IT side, put in place a structure so that, I mean, we had over 3,500 students enrolled on these courses. So we had to put in place a structure so that people could view this and access it. And then when the full lockdown came into play, our printing production got shut down. And then we had to look at how we're going to get these notes printed and how we're going to logistically get them out to the students, because those students were meant to have come to the premises. So between On Post, DBD, we delivered the notes nationwide. And we also recognized, I suppose, as it was happening.
Is this going to change the way the Institute of Education does its business into the future?
Oh, well, I think education has changed dramatically. Like, since this has happened in March, right across the country, primary schools, secondary schools, and a third level as well, everybody is learning now remotely. Everyone is used to it. It's not ideal in many ways, but a lot of people have got used to it. And for a lot of people, it is very, very convenient. So there will be, I think, going forward, and also in September when things open up, there's talk about, a virtual learning environment as well. And they're looking at that because it mightn't be possible with social distancing to have everybody in at the same time. But I think people, and it's this is not just with learning, but it's also just people and their work practices as well. But people have realized, that by learning or doing virtual activity at home, they cut out the commute. They're able to stay at home. They're able to maybe look after their children, their lifestyle. So I wouldn't be surprised going forward if a blended approach is something that will happen. So we are in the process of actually developing products for the new year and also for this summer. For example, for this summer, all the Gaeltachts are cancelled. Nobody can go to France, Spain, or Germany to study their modern languages like they normally would for 3 weeks, or these exchange programs that they do. So that's all gone. So we are actually this summer looking at bringing the Gaeltacht and modern language courses virtually, also online, to the students and parents in this country. And we're going to be delivering them sort of in 1 week modules. So you can sign up, do a 1 week course in French or a 1 week course in German. And we're going to be rolling that out over the summer also. And they'll be like 9 to 5. And the approach that we're looking at is that, there'll be a little bit of, there'll be, say, a half an hour of tuition, maybe a half an hour maybe of recorded tuition, half an hour of Q&A. Then we might break for 10 minutes for, a coffee or a tea or whatever. Because it is very intense as well, learning off the screen. So we're learning.
That is one of the struggles, isn't it? That there's only
very
so
intense.
much attention.
Yeah. It's a lot like, I mean, if you come off a Zoom call, you're an hour Zoom call, your brain is fried.
It's funny. I read a psychological report recently about the sort of psychological dissonance of looking at people with different backgrounds, that your brain is actually scrambled trying to make sense of it all, and you do feel a little bit washed out when you come off these calls. Peter and Una, so lovely to hear the background and where your business started. We're all in agreement that what happens next is a new world order. We're going to talk shortly after the break about calculated grades and the future of your business. The reality, though, of a family business when the founder is still in the hot seat must have been quite tricky.
Yeah, and Dad, I suppose, is a big personality, and it was his baby. So, yeah, he was reluctant to hand over the baton, as he said, to Peter and myself. Probably thought we'd make a mess of it. So initially in the first few years, Dad was very much still involved, and we would have had, heated debates over certain things that we wanted to maybe introduce new changes. And he probably won those debates because he is a very charismatic person, and it was ultimately his baby, as I said.
That's the cost of charisma right there.
That's the cost of charisma, exactly. Yeah, but then I think things obviously did move on, and he did hang up his boots eventually, but he's still very much a part of the institute, and very much, still a teacher at heart, and the teachers really loved that and could really relate to him. So he's always very much still involved, asks after it, and would come to the Christmas party and the end of year parties and things like that. So
I'm sure he's intensely proud now when he sees what you've both done, and where you've brought the business. Peter, you I suppose have a very personal experience of how being a part of a family business can have a huge impact.
Yeah, well, I was just saying to Una earlier on, the difference between working in a corporation, working in a family business. There are things that happen in life, unforeseen eventualities. My wife, who was Una's best friend, we were next door neighbours, passed away 2 years ago, and she was sick for 3 years prior to that with cancer. So when that happened, I had to step away from the business for for those 3 years, and also for the year after she passed away. And Una was able to step in to the breach and run the show. And there are certain attributes that you just probably can't get away with if you're in a big multinational or a corporation. They're one of the attributes that are really fantastic about a family business, that it allows a certain amount of flexibility, a certain amount of empathy and compassion and understanding. And also, as I was mentioning, I've three young girls. They're 12, 10, and 8. And Una has three girls as well, about the same age. And with that kind of brings certain challenges. And there's times when you want to be able to be with them. There's times when you want to go on holidays, summer holidays and that. And we're able to kind of work together and dovetail together to make sure that we have a good sort of lifestyle balance between work and looking after the family. And I think that's something else that comes with the family business. So there are pros and cons, but I think definitely the pros outweigh the cons. You're also working together, and that's something very, very special. So it's not just about making a few quid. It's about producing something special together in a family, and leaving a legacy as well.
It's amazing, and I see increasingly, that humanity that flows through your business is so powerful, and I see a lot of multinationals and corporations now really trying to find ways to connect that into the business. But when it comes naturally through a family unit, it's wonderful to see.
Yeah.
Um, Una, I suppose we can't have this interview without talking about the reality of the landscape of the Leaving Cert. The Leaving Cert is, a massive part of your business, and other state exams, obviously. But I suppose how do you approach as a business the statement around calculated grades?
I might just jump in here, Sonia. Sorry.
yeah.
I suppose it's really important to recognise that there's a draft set of guidelines that were brought out by the Department of Education, and the Minister in a special task force last week. And earlier on this week in the Dáil, Minister McHugh has come out and said that there's going to be further clarification guidelines brought out, because I think that was very much an initial draft. So I think at this stage, even to speculate on the framework and the format is slightly premature, because it's changing and it's so fluid at the moment. We really have to wait until there's sort of a definitive guideline brought out. we could speculate now on what we think is going to be the case, but that could be completely overturned in 24 hours. That those guidelines that they're promising is next week. So I suppose from a timeline point of view, that's going to push out whatever process is going to get done into the future. But I think to try and interpret a draft set of guidelines now would
Yeah.
be speculative.
Well, I suppose, Peter, if we zoom out then, and without getting into the nuts and bolts of it, even at this broad base, what is the biggest challenge that you face in the Institute of Education?
For ourselves, well, I suppose we now have to it looks like if we're going down the road of calculated or predictive grades, um, I suppose a task that was previously done by the state, was done by the Department of Education, now has to get done by schools. And that brings teachers and the principals into the equation. So previously, where you taught someone a subject and they went and they did a state exam, and the state went and looked at giving a grade to that student, that onus and that task of producing that grade is now having to be done by individual schools. And then
which is another whole business being dropped in on top of your business.
It is, and to be honest, it requires a certain skill. This form of assessment. However, on looking at the guidelines, we're up to the challenge, and we'll be able to fulfil the tasks as they've been laid out in the guidelines. However, it is going to bring a certain body of work that we hadn't previously anticipated. It's going to bring the teachers in, and you got to remember these teachers, our teachers, if I can talk about my own teachers, our teachers have been teaching virtually since March, and we all know how intensive it is to deliver any work over the internet. We have been delivering 1,600 classes a week. These teachers have been working flat out from their home, with all the various different difficulties that go with working from home. They weren't planning this. They weren't used to this. A lot of them would have families. So they have worked incredibly hard and have delivered this product. And now they're coming to the end of the year. Normally they'd be planning their summer holidays, especially after having had to do so much extra work. They were probably looking at, enjoying their summer. And now on top of that, they're being asked to now conduct this extra task, an extra piece of work. So I really do feel for the teachers in this. Right across the country, not just in our own school, right across the country, teachers are being asked to do something, and also to bear in mind, they're being asked to grade students, and that brings a serious element of psychology to it. They're being asked, and whether you like it or not, that there's going to be sleepless nights if they feel they may have given a grade or not given a grade, and that person's career may go a different path because that has suddenly a decision that was taken by the state is now being taken by teachers and principals right across the country. So that'll bring an element of stress.
So Peter, what advice is there out there, or what advice can you give to the students and the families at this stage?
Okay, well, up until now, it's been a long road. The students have worked very, very hard up until now. There's been a lot of changing of goalposts, which has caused its own sense, a certain amount of anxiety. We are waiting to get clarification from the department and the minister, waiting to find out when there's going to be possibly a definitive date for Leaving Cert. We mightn't even know that for some time. So there's a bit of a waiting game right now. And until we know what is going to be happening definitively, everything else is speculation. I think the best advice I could give to students is right now, while we're in this lull period until we find out what's going on, is to maybe put down the pens, to relax, take it easy. It has been a very, very stressful roller coaster ride since March. And I think they've earned a bit of a break, to be honest. So I'd be saying to them, take it easy, go outside, kick a ball, Zoom your friends, hang out with your family, switch off until we can find out what's going on. Look, I think it's obvious with coronavirus and everything like that, this is going to be a bit of a long road. And there's going to be many a twist and turn. In the decision making, there's a lot of shifting sands. Things are changing. We don't know whether we're going to get a second surge or not. If we get a second surge, everything gets shut down again. So there's this back and forth. And in that kind of environment, you can only work with what's in front of you and what you know. Right now, there's a lot of unknown. There's a lot of unanswered questions. I would say, put the pen down, relax, take it easy. And when we have something in front of us where we can make proper decisions, informed decisions, let's do that. But we don't have that information in front of us.
So the T-shirt reads, Peter Kearns says, put down the pen.
So
if you say it.
Yeah, and it's rare enough. For this one time, normally I'd be telling people to buckle up and get ready for the next 3 weeks as we go into June. But right now I'm saying, take it easy, put the feet up, relax, don't worry until we know what's going to happen, until we have some information. And I also say, caveat, it's going to be a long road, and there's going to be, there might be long periods of time where we don't know what's happening. And while we have that, make use of that time. Do not stress. Try and get yourself into a stress-free environment if that's possible at all.
And what about Peter, the student who just wants to sit the Leaving Cert, who might be looking at sitting it next year?
Yeah, well, again, Sonia, just say next year is just that's a rumor mill that's going around. I read that they're going to run the Leaving Cert as soon as is possible from a health perspective, within the health guidelines. And who knows? That could be, it could be July, it could be August, it could be autumn, it could be January. We don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was sooner rather than later. But there are students that have a love of their subject, that have been studying this subject, and they want to have their day in court. They want to have that to sit that exam, and uh, I think if that's their choice and that's what they want to do, they should definitely do that. Obviously, there's been a bit of momentum building up to that exam now. I guess that they might lose a little bit of momentum right now until we know when there's going to be a Leaving Cert date. But as soon as we do have that date, we, the Institute, will be putting in place courses to back up and support any student that wants to do that exam. And if they're in first year in college, and they want to go and do Leaving Cert in one or two subjects, if it's after they started college, we will be putting in place a course to support those students. And we'll also be supporting any of our existing students, but we'll also look to support external students as well, if any of them want to do the Leaving Cert. But we'll know
So,
more about that. Yeah.
and I suppose every crisis brings opportunity. Has this been a time for you to sort of envision a new reality for the institute?
Well, I think virtual learning is the new thing that's come out, and a lot of people have taken to it. A lot of our teachers have, for the first time ever, been delivering courses. A lot of them have really enjoyed it and found it very, very useful, and a very useful tool. A lot of people can't get into us in the institute on Leeson Street because of logistical reasons. We are going to be delivering our courses virtually and online, nationwide. So a lot of the teachers that we have with us, they're authors of textbooks. They are experts in their fields. They are examiners. They're involved in the examination process. So whether you're in Mizenhead or Mallinhead, or whether you're in Ranelagh or Tubbercurry, you will be able to access those students, access those teachers online virtually. And we're also ambitious in our task, but we're looking at rolling out our day school as well virtually. So if you're not able to go to school for whatever reason, if say you have an underlying health condition and you're concerned about the virus, or a family member, or for whatever reason you can't go to school, and there's many reasons, we're hoping that we'll be able to deliver a day school product online virtually for our students. So,
And Una, there is a very clear sense of ambition from both of you. That your dad started something, you've taken it to a completely different place, and now through this crisis, it can evolve and grow even more. How impactful was the Entrepreneur of the Year program on your thinking, I suppose, and on your vision for the future?
Well, first of all, I suppose when we were invited to take part, we were honoured and felt privileged to be considered entrepreneurs. We always said we're not the entrepreneurs, our father is, but I suppose we have adapted and brought in a lot of new changes. So we were very honoured and privileged to be part of it, and it has really, I suppose, helped us. Bouncing ideas off other people who were in the alumni, and just seeing other success stories and other, ideas and potential that's out there for growth in the education sector and our own sector. And I suppose in the situation that we're in, every cloud has a silver lining. So we definitely are taking the positives and trying to look forward and use, the opportunities of virtual learning in our business to be able to reach the second level students across the country nationwide. But being part of the Entrepreneur of the Year was a fantastic experience, and I suppose one we'll never forget. And it was fantastic having Dad there also on the night of the in City West when the awards night was on. So it was lovely having lot of teachers and staff and mum and dad.
Uná and Peter Kearns, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me on Architects of Business today. It's been fabulous. I have 2 junior cert, not junior cert twins at home. So yes, I am certainly a peripheral stakeholder. I get the emails. Let's just put it that way. Thank you so much.
Right. Lovely.
We have, by the way, we're doing a virtual open evening on Monday, the 18th. For anyone that wants to join. Anyone wants to find out about our 4th year day school, our 5th year day school, or our 6th year day school. So we're going to
see, that's why you're on the big bucks, Peter. You get the plug in at the end. Thanks for listening and watching Architects of Business, made in partnership with EY Entrepreneur of the Year. Thanks to the whole team here at JOE, and of course to our entrepreneurs today, Peter and Uná Kearns. If you haven't already done so, click subscribe to get brand new shows directly into your feed.